This US company is beginning to look attractive. Deckers Outdoor, ticker symbol DECK, owns the shoe brands Hoka and UGG, but the stock has fallen 45% year to date. So is now a good time to buy the dip? Let's find out. At the latest price, DECK has a market value of $17 billion. The company has $1.7 billion of cash on its balance sheet and no debt, so the enterprise value is $15.2 billion. Meanwhile, the company has generated $5.1 billion of revenue over the last 12 months, just under $1 billion of net income and $1.3 billion of EBITDA. The company hasn't yet reported its free cash flow numbers, but it's unlikely to be much lower than net income, so DECK stock is now valued at 3 times sales, 17 times earnings and 12 times EBITDA. Deckers Outdoor has fallen 45% this year for two main reasons. The first is valuation. When the company reported its Q4 earnings in January, the stock traded at a nosebleed 35 times earnings, which made the stock vulnerable to any disappointments. The second reason is tariffs. DECK sources many of its products from overseas, particularly Vietnam, which means the company is exposed to the 20% tariff rate imposed by Donald Trump. Investors sold DECK stock while assessing those implications. But despite the issues, DECK's latest earnings were hugely impressive. Total revenues increased 17% to a new record, with the Hoka brand up 19.8% and UGG up 18.9%. International sales were up 50% compared to just 2.8% in the US. Earnings also increased double digits. In other words, despite the stock falling 45%, the business is performing about as well as it has at any time. However, there are a couple of wrinkles in this story, because management said on the company earnings call that they haven't yet felt the effect from tariffs, because the majority of its products were already sold or shipped prior to tariffs taking effect. In fact, management is now estimating the cost of tariffs at $185 million, up from their previous estimate of $150 million. So tariffs are still to hit. DECK will increase its prices in order to lessen the effect, but there's no doubt that lower margins are on the way. An additional concern is competition, with many brands trying to gain share. Nike has fallen by the wayside in recent years, but a resurgence of that company under CEO Elliott Hill could turn up the heat on the running shoe market. To value DECK, I assume the company achieves an annual revenue growth rate of 8% for the next 10 years with free cash flow margins of 18%. That's slightly lower than the company's recent average. Using a terminal rate of 2.5% and a discount rate of 10%, I get to a fair value of $138 a share, which is 22% above the current price. So DECK stock is beginning to look attractive. So long as Hoka and UGG stay on trend, the stock looks like a decent buy. But these are my personal opinions, not financial advice, and I hold no position in DECK. For more investing videos, make sure to join my newsletter at 3minutebreakdowns.com. Thank you for watching.